The member for Denison.
Thank you, Speaker. Speaker, I seek leave to move the following motion: that the Minister for Immigration and Border Protection be censured for implying that the baby Asher was deliberately harmed as a means of facilitating asylum seeker access to Australia.
Is leave granted? Is leave granted? Leave is not granted. The member for Denison.
Then, Speaker, I move that so much of standing and sessional orders be suspended as would prevent me from moving the following motion: that the Minister for Immigration and Border Protection be censured for implying that the baby Asher was deliberately harmed as a means of facilitating asylum seeker access to Australia. Speaker, this needs to be dealt with immediately. What the minister said during question time today I found to be one of the ugliest things that I have heard in this place in my 5.5 years serving here. For the minister to stand up and to say that baby Asher will ultimately be returned to Nauru, and by implication the other 29 babies who are currently in the process of being returned to Nauru will indeed be returned to Nauru, to say that that has to be done as a disincentive to asylum seekers in the future, thinking that by self-harm or harming their babies or their children that somehow they can use that as a mechanism for getting to Australia, I just find that absolutely appalling. What people in this House seem to be losing sight of is we are talking about some of the most vulnerable, disadvantaged, endangered people on this planet. And in particular, we're talking about what this government is up to right now, the return of 267 asylum seekers to Nauru.
The member for Denison resume his seat. I call the Assistant Minister.
I move that the member be no longer heard.
The question is that the member be no longer heard. All those of that opinion say aye. To the contrary, no. I think the ayes have it. Division required. Ring the bells for 4 minutes.
lock the doors. Question is that the member be no longer heard. The ayes to pass the right of the chair, the nays to the left. And I appoint the members for Parks and Braddon for the ayes and the member for Shortland and Lawler for the nays. Order. The result of the division, ayes 78, noes 49. The question is therefore resolved in the affirmative. Is the motion seconded? I call the member for Melbourne.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. I second this motion. The minister has implied that babies and children are in hospital or may end up in hospital as part of some deliberate, coordinated attempt to blackmail this government. Now, that is a disgusting statement, and it is worthy of censure, and standing orders must be suspended because there are dozens of other babies and children currently in Australia right now whose situation is uncertain. Their situation is uncertain, and their parents and those around them will be looking to what the minister says to decide, to know whether or not they have a chance of raising their kids in a healthy environment. Now, let's recap as to how we got here. The minister was asked a simple question about what would happen with baby Asha and whether or not she would be entitled to stay in Australia or would be sent back to Nauru. And it was also asked what was going to happen to the other children. And what did the minister say? The minister said this. He said he would not preside over a situation where we have people self-harming to come to hospitals in this country because they believe that is the route out into the Australian community for Australian citizenship. Now, you can only draw two inferences from that. One is that babies and children themselves are self-harming because that is how they believe to get to Australia. It wasn't as a result of an accident. It wasn't as a result of spilled boiling water. Somehow they're making that decision themselves. Or secondly, the minister is implying that somehow the families of those babies and children are harming them or are encouraging them to self-harm in order to come to Australia. Now, that is a disgusting and vile statement. And as we always see with this government and the Liberal National Party, when the polls go down, the vileness goes up. And it is happening yet again. As we head towards another election, it is becoming another race to the bottom on refugees, another race to the bottom to see who can take the most vulnerable in our community, those who need the most help, those who are coming here seeking our help, babies and children who have committed no other crime other than being born here or going to school here, and how we can treat them. And what does the minister say? Well, there's self-harm going on, and it may be that they're doing it themselves, or it may be that their parents are encouraging them to do it. This so-called party of family values, stands up in this parliament and says it's conceivable that some parents might encourage their children to harm themselves just to get into a hospital. I have not met one parent anywhere ever, of any race, of any nationality, who would ever consider putting their child in harm's way, whatever the potential gain. And now we have the immigration minister suggesting there might be some deliberate plot hatched to get children into Australian hospitals. What he is overlooking is the simple point that the doctors and the health staff in Brisbane made loud and clear. And it's the same point that is being made by doctors and health staff in my electorate of Melbourne. And it is the same point that is being made by state premiers. And it is the same point that is being made by thousands and thousands around the country. Detention harms children. Detention harms children. That is why they said they weren't going to release them, not as part of some nefarious plot, but because detention harms children, and this minister knows it. Now, say what you like, Deputy Speaker, about the various merits of asylum seeker policy. And I think everyone understands that this is a complex issue. And if you don't think it's a complex issue, you haven't been paying attention. But the suggestion from this government boils down to this. Whatever we might be able to do in terms of a regional solution, whatever other options there might be, the government is saying that somehow child abuse is a necessary component of an effective border protection and immigration policy. What rot! We do not agree with that. The Greens do not accept that our only choice is between deaths at sea and child abuse. And I notice that the Minister for Immigration is in the chamber, and I hope that he is going to stand up, because if he stands up and if he is really concerned about deaths at sea, then take this opportunity to assure us that on your watch, from the vote turnbacks, there have been no deaths at sea. Tell us that from every boat you've turned back, it hasn't gone on to cause deaths at sea. Take this opportunity to tell us that there haven't been deaths at sea somewhere else, as people choose not to come to Australia but instead seek asylum elsewhere. Well, this is a complicated issue. Of course it is a complicated issue. But the suggestion the only way we can solve it is by child abuse, and the implication that parents might be encouraging their children to self-harm is vile, and the Minister should be censored.
The honourable member's time has expired, and I call the Honourable Minister of Immigration and Border Protection.
Well, thank you very much, Mr Speaker, and I appreciate the opportunity to be able to speak on what's a very important issue. And my judgment is that the member has taken offence to that part of my question which went to the Greens being complicit with the Labor Party in the number of people, numbering 1,200, who drowned at sea under their watch. Now, I made no such suggestion as the member suggests in relation to baby Asher. In fact, I was asked a question this morning on the Today Show by Lisa Wilkinson about whether or not there's an investigation. I did confirm, because I had received advice that there had been, or there is, an investigation being conducted by the Queensland Police, and it was not a matter for me to comment on. I've not made any other public comment in relation to this particular matter, and I make no further comment today. The police and the family services from Queensland have carriage of any investigation in this area, and it is completely and utterly an issue for them. And so I've passed no judgment. I make no comment in relation to it. The only action we've taken in relation to baby Asher is to provide evacuation from Nauru, because the medical assistance wasn't able to be provided on Nauru, and that baby has been brought to Australia and provided with medical assistance at the Lady Salento Hospital in Brisbane. The advice that I received through my department was that the baby had received the medical attention, required no further medical attention. On that basis, the doctors were willing to release the baby from hospital. The next step that took place was that there was a transfer this morning from the hospital. The baby and her family will reside in community detention, as is the case for 83 others who have come from Nauru, received medical assistance, or are part of a family group where one person or more has received medical assistance. And that has been the way in which we've got the numbers of children down. When I've spoken in this House before, I know the Greens don't like this, but when we got the numbers down, bearing in mind that 8,000 children were in detention when Labor and Greens were in power in this country, the number is now less than 80. And the reason it's less than 80 is because I have allowed some of those 83, the children within the group of 83, out into community detention. My intention is to reduce that number from 75 down to zero, because I've said to this House before, and I repeat it today, I'm not going to cop sanctimonious lectures from the Greens, who presided over people drowning at sea and record numbers of children in detention. I'm going to get children out of detention, and I'm going to make sure that we keep the boats stopped so that we don't see a repeat of men, women and children drowning at sea. So this cooked-up situation that the Greens are trying to present to the parliament today needs to be seen for what it is. They are embarrassed by their record, they are humiliated by their record, and I can say, in direct answer to the honourable member's question when he put it in his contribution, whether or not I can say that no people have drowned at sea since Operation Sovereign Borders has commenced. Yes, I can confirm that on the advice available to me, not one death, not one injury has been incurred at sea, and that is a significant improvement. Now, I can say, Mr Speaker, we are not going to tolerate these lectures from the Greens, because they have demonstrated time and time again that they are hypocrites, and that is why the censure motion proposed by the member should be rejected.
Order. Call the honourable member for Corio.
Thank you, Mr Deputy Speaker. It is to state the obvious that this debate and area of public policy is enormously complex and enormously sensitive. There is much in the way the government has handled offshore processing about which we on the opposition side would seek to criticise. We do criticise the failure to find credible third country options in a timely way, which we believe has been one of the critical issues in leading to the difficulties which are faced right now in relation to the running of both Manus and Nauru. But what matters deeply in this debate is that we are very clear and we are very accurate about what facts we know. This is an almost impossible debate to have, and a problem which is impossible to resolve in circumstances where what is portrayed and what people say just don't marry up with what actually is the reality of the situation. There has never been, I would suggest, a debate in this country where it is more important to be utterly faithful and accurate to the facts as we know them. Now, the opposition will not be supporting the honourable member's motion now, and we won't be because he has, in that motion, suggested that the minister has implied something which clearly the minister did not say, and the Hansard record will bear that out. I've looked very closely at the motion. I spoke with the minister briefly to get his recollection. I obviously have my own in terms of what was said in here. It seeks to suggest that the minister said something which he just didn't. Now, I actually think there is a principle in all of this which matters of itself, and that is that we get the facts right as we seek to debate this issue, and that is that we are absolutely and forensically and passionately and zealously accurate about it. Because we as a country are not going to be able to resolve this issue so long as we make spin a part of how we go about this. So in circumstances where what the minister has said is a matter which is plainly on the record, we're not going to be voting for something which suggests something different. Now, that doesn't mean that the opposition doesn't have a whole lot of matters of difference between ourselves and the government in relation to this. We do. We do. And I made that clear in the opening to this contribution. Can I just say in relation to baby Asher, her treatment and her care needs to be handled sensitively. Obviously, it needs to be handled on the basis of her treating physicians' and practitioners' advice, and the decisions that the government makes in relation to her fate and that of her family needs to be done on the basis of Australia having an ongoing obligation in respect of the safety of all asylum seekers and refugees in direct and indirect care of the Australian government, both onshore and offshore. That's the basis on which the government should be making its decisions in relation to baby Asher and her family, and again, that is a position which the opposition has made clear. But ultimately, the position we take in relation to the motion which is put before us today is based on our need and our belief that this is a debate which has to be done on the basis of accurately representing what all of us say within that debate, and this resolution simply does not do that.
Order. The time has just about expired for the debate. The time, in fact, you've got 30 seconds. The member for Denison.
Deputy Speaker, it needs to be put on the record that sending children to Nauru is a crime. The forcible transfer of children to a third...
The member for Denison resume his seat. Resume your seat. Resume your seat. I put the question that the motion be agreed to. All those of that opinion say aye. Contrary, no. I think the noes have it. Ayes have it. Only one voice. Ayes have two voices. Division required. Division required. Ring the bells for 4 minutes. The ayes are passed to the right of the chair, the nays to the left, and I appoint the members for Parks and Radden for the ayes, and the member for Lawler and Shortman for the nays.
You're taking economic narrative. As the humble member of the Majesty's opposition. Even though it's probably analyze the piece of screen. What was the original? It's under the events.
Lock the doors. Question is the motion be agreed to. As there are fewer than 5 members on the side to the ayes in this division, I declare the question negated in accordance with Standing Order number 127. The names of those members who are in the minority will be recorded in the votes and proceedings.